Başlatıyorum.
Okay. I think we're live.
Yeah, we're live.
Hello and welcome to the second session of the CODERUNNER series. I'm here with Emrah Uslu. Hi Emrah, how are you today?
Hello, thank you very much. I'm fine.
And
Hello, everyone.
very good. Yeah, you can.
Let me introduce a little bit. My name is Emrah Uslu. I'm a developer experience lead here. We're working with Fatih, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Oh. And I'm Fatih Doğan. I'm for about 5 years here, and we're going to talk about the fundamentals of identity management and programming to authenticate in AWS via the .NET technology. So let's go. Today's agenda is we're going to talk about a little bit is what is IAM and how it's I forgot to change the scene. So we're going to talk about what is IAM and how it provides us a centralized control and security to us. We're going to touch a little bit about users and groups. After that, we're gonna dive into the authentication management stuff. We're gonna take a look at access policies, multi-factor authentication, and password policies. And at last, we're gonna take a look at the access keys and how to manage them.
Yeah. By the way, IAM is the abbreviation for identity and access management.
Yeah. Let's go.
Let's start.
So, what is IAM? As Emrah said, it's identity and access management for the AWS services. It's literally everywhere. You have to use these services to use other services. So, it's pretty important. This session will be important too, so because we will be using these, using the things we see here throughout the other sessions, so it's pretty important. Let's get to the point. What is IAM? It enables you to control who can do what in your AWS account. It's basically a user group role and permission stuff. So it's pretty important, as I said before.
Yeah. By the way, you can do multi-factor authentication using IAM or identity federation or other advanced stuff.
So.
But they don't cover today's topic. But we try to give the fundamentals.
The basics.
Today. But you can do multi-factor authentication or identity federation or other stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna touch a little bit, as I said, the multi-factor authentication stuff. But we're gonna not do any of the things in our demo. We're gonna not touch that today. So, the centralized control. What is centralized control? Actually, Amazon provides us a three options to manage our services and resources throughout your life in the AWS. So one of them is the CLI. AWS provides a CLI for us. You can download it and use it via the command line or terminal, if you will. And you can do pretty much everything through that CLI. You can create resources, attach policies to users, all that stuff. And it actually uses the API behind. Today we will look into that. Our SDKs also using the APIs behind that. APIs is the underlying technology, basically. You can use the APIs. You don't have to use the SDKs or CLI or anything. You can directly request via HTTPS, POST, or GET. You can use that in web-enabled environments, basically everywhere. And you also have web UI.
I like that.
Yeah. Every basic user actually uses that. You can go into the AWS management portal. You can create your resources there. It's basically the manual stuff. So you can manage these services: RDS, EC2, S3, etc., etc. All the services you can manage the old services. So let's go. Users and groups. It's really basic stuff. User is a user who can interact with the services and basically manage them. Groups is a collection of users. So you can attach policies, permissions to users and also groups. If you put one of the users in a specific group and you give the permissions to the group, user can also have that policy and permissions to do such things. So,
by the way, these IAM users are not separate accounts. This is the users within your accounts.
Yeah. When you create an account, you also have an IAM directory basically, and you can create users, groups, and roles within it. And the other, maybe your employees will use these users and permissions to manage your services actually, and resources.
Okay.
So, in the authentication management, you have access and secret keys for the CLI. In the API, you also have the access key and secret keys, but you also have the option of using multi-factor authentication in the API section. CLI doesn't support that. In the web UI, you already have your username and password. You can use these to log into the AWS management portal and also have the multi-factor authentication within it. So I'm gonna go ahead. And about the access policies, policies is actually a document that you attach to users or groups. It states who can do what. The policies actually, AWS provides us a list of policies already there, but you can also create custom policies and attach them to users or groups. You see what area? Administrator access, it's actually the default one, default ones. You can see the statement, effect, action. Action is what it can do, and resource, what resources. So administrator access is actually a star. It means everything. Administrator access gives the action, all actions to the all resources, and effect is the allow here, and you can basically do everything in every resources. In the right side, Amazon S3 read-only access, it's the default one too. You can see the action is S3 column get star. If it starts with get S3 column get, it will be given to that user or group. S3 column list action too, and all the resources. It basically gives a get or list permissions to all S3 resources. If you give that policy to a user or group, those users or groups can view or get a list of your S3 instances and buckets in them, etc. So it's basically this. About multi-factor authentication, it provides us an extra level of security. It works with your AWS root account. It's basically the account that you registered first. And IAM users, after you create the users, those users will be able to use the multi-factor authentication basically. There is multiple form of factors when you want to use the multi-factor authentication. Virtual one is the basically you can install an app onto your phone and see the PIN number in that application and input that to a sign-in process. But also you can have a hardware MFA enabled device. If your services or your business requires that, you can also have that option. So it also multi-factor authentication does not have any additional cost. You don't have to pay anything, but if you want the hardware stuff, you have to pay that. But other than that, there is no additional cost, so it's great. About the password policy, admins in your directory can have policies for the users, and it's basically the password. This password has to have uppercase letter, lowercase letter, some numbers in it, maybe some symbols. You can choose whatever you like. The password length also the option, and the users with passwords don't comply that will be welcomed with that screen and in the next login and change their password. So it was a quick recap of what IAM is and the settings and options within the IAM. And we're gonna go into the authentication and a little bit of preparation for the demo. We're gonna use the API in our session today because we're gonna go and use the SDK.
Yeah, we want to show you how to programmatically do this authentication stuff, so we're going to use API.
Yeah. We're not going to use the multi-factor authentication, just the access case and secret case. So, what is access key? It's basically a username and password for your applications. It's a little bit longer, a little bit complicated, but it's basically that. Access key and secret keys, you can see in the slide, will look just like that, a little bit like that. And one user can have maximum of two access keys. Remember that, it's really important. And you can also generate temporary access keys for your applications. If your application requires to run 1 year maybe, you can generate an expirable access key and use that when it's appropriate actually. So, how do you provision it? It's the user create account, create screen. You give your username and on the below there's a select AWS access type options. Two options will be given to you. One of them is the programmatic access. We will be using that today. But also you can have a normal username and password if you choose the AWS Management Console access option. So you can also select both of them and use that user to log into the AWS Management Console and also use the access key and secret key to manage your resources within the applications you wrote. So after that, this screen pops up and you see the access key ID and secret key access key. There is a download.csv button there. You're going to want to do that because this is the last time you see the secret access key. If you skip this, don't download the CSV or copy the secret access key, you will no longer be able to use that access key ID. It's important. This is the access key screen. You can see the access key ID, but there's no secret key here. Remember, you can see the status is active. You can make it inactive when, if you ask, maybe it was compromised or it was you didn't need it anymore. You can go ahead and make inactive this key or permanently delete.
Yeah. Will we show the screens in our demo?
Yeah. We're going to show these screens in our demo. We're going to create a user and use that in our .NET application. So, access keys, where do we store them? In development environments, you can store within the application. You can store in the credential file. There's a credential file in the system when you install the SDK or AWS CLI. And these services keeps the access key and secret key in those files if you configure them properly. Or you can store in the SDK store. It's actually the recommended one. So we're gonna see it in action. In production side, you can store in secure storage per application, or you can use the roles for your EC2 instances. We're gonna also take a look at that in our demo. We're gonna create a role for EC2 instances, but we're not going to attach to it to a EC2 instance or anything, but we will be using that role in our next sessions. It's important too. So, we're going to go ahead and look at the how we can use that approach in our development environments. If you want to store your access key and secret key into your applications, you can use within the application, just copy and paste in the code, and you will be able to use that approach. Or you can store within the web config or app config file. These are the names AWS access key and AWS secret key will be the application will look into that app settings actually, and if it finds that, it will use that. But we do not recommend that
it's
approach.
Not the best practice.
Yeah.
So please don't embed access keys into code, but you can do it. It's an option.
Yeah, in development, do not do that in production.
Even in development. Even
Yeah,
in development.
yeah. Don't do that, basically. Or you can store within the credential file. The credential file is actually in the C or where you installed Windows actually. And in that users, your username, there is a .aws directory there. It's hidden actually, and within that there's a credentials file. In that file, there will be your access keys and secret keys if you configure it through the AWS CLI or the tooling the Visual Studio, the Amazon provides the Visual Studio.
Yeah, this is the default location where our SDK look for.
Yeah. This is the default location. I don't know if you can change that, but the tooling will use that directory and file.
Okay.
And in your code, you can actually use a parameterless instances when you create that, and it will look into the that file to find the access key and the secret key. So you don't have to do any of the authentication stuff in your code. It's decouples the that need for macro. You can see the file, what kind of file the credentials is. There's a, it looks like an inner file actually. Default is the, guess what, default one. If there is no profile name, the tooling will use the default one. So it's important. The other option, the recommended option, is using an SDK store. So if you install the AWS tooling for the Visual Studio, you will see that AWS Explorer, when you create a profile within the AWS Explorer, it will generate a request for the SDK store and store your credentials within that. So there will be no access key or secret key in your local machine. It's basically the recommended one. So you can also use parameterless instances within your code, and you have to basically just provide the AWS profile name, and it will fetch the necessary
access key and secret keys from the Amazon. So this is the safest and the most secure one?
It basically doesn't have anything in the local machine, and it just fetches if it needs anything. Okay. So you can also have the option of creating your AWS credentials through that profile name. There's a class named stored profile AWS credentials. You pass the profile name into that, and it will fetch the necessary access keys and secret keys, and you can use that in your other service clients. So it's basically that. So there's a lot of options here. There has to be an order to look for things. This is the order actually.
This is the order that our SDK uses.
SDK and CLI uses. Okay. It first looks for the AWS access key and secret key in your web app or web config or app config. If it doesn't find that, it looks for the SDK store. If it goes to that option, it will be looking for the AWS profile name in your app config or web config again. If it doesn't find that, uses the default one. Even the default one is not available, does not exist, it goes for the credential file you have on your local machine. it again looks for the AWS profile name. If it finds the credential for that, it uses that, or if it does not find the AWS profile name within your app config or web config, it will use the default one. And even that does not exist, there is the last option, which is the recommended one in the production environments. It will look for the easy to use roles, and if it can do what you want to do and have that policy, the EC2 role have that policy, the application will do what you want to do flawlessly. Actually, it's the recommended one, as I said. So that is the positions of the
accessing keys.
It's an important subject because when we first look into the samples and getting into the codes, we were actually wondering where it was fetching the access keys and secret keys.
Yeah.
So this is the clarifying thing for us.
Yeah.
This was the clarifying thing for us.
Yeah, these are the best practices.
Yeah.
Let me tell one of the most important ones. As Fatih said, we should create separate IAM users under the root account. So we recommend that don't use the access keys of the root account. Use the separate users accounts and users keys and secrets. And the second one is for example, when you access the EC2 instances, you can use a feature called temporary security credentials. If you can do it, use that temporary security credentials. So it will be more secure accessing these EC2 instances. You can use it, for example, when you use roles.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said, don't embed your access keys into your Visual Studio code. Use the Amazon instead, the SDK store instead. Yeah. And if you want to isolate your application's privacy, use different access key for your different applications. It's very important to isolating their privacy settings. Otherwise, when you change one of their application's settings, it affects the other ones, and we don't want it. And the last one that I can say is a rotating access key. It's a well-known technique to increase the security. For this reason, Amazon allows us to create a second access key for every user. You can follow these steps, create your second access key, assign them to your users and applications, and then check if it is still active. You can access your program, so make the old one inactive and then delete it. So it's increasing your security.
Basically, it all comes to the disaster scenarios. You have to be prepared for these type of situations. So change your access keys periodically. Do not use embedded access keys, etc. Because AWS provides you better options. So it's always good to use that type of options. So there's also a multi-factor authentication option if your business or your services are what you call important. really important. You can use the multi-factor authentication to change or delete this type of resources. And at last, the IAM roles for EC2 instances. You attach a role on your EC2 and you don't have to use any access key or secret key if you publish your application, if you run your application within that EC2 instance. So, at last, we're gonna take a look at how are the DLLs organized within the AWS SDK. It's basically AWS SDK.core. That assembly actually, the other service-specific assemblies uses that core assembly to do their work actually. When you are using the SDK in the code, you're gonna have to use the namespaces Amazon.runtime, Amazon.data, service-specific namespace, and the dot model is a convention AWS uses in their SDKs. If you are looking for a specific class or something using the API, you can definitely find it within the model namespace. So, always use the Nugget for adding the libraries into your applications because Nugget will fetch the latest one to use. You can also select, but it's better to use the latest DLLs and runtimes. So let's jump right into a demo. What we're going to do in the demo is we're going to go ahead and create a role and create a user within the AWS IAM. We're going to create an access key within that user and use that credentials, use that access key and secret keys within our AWS environment. We're gonna go into AWS Explorer and create a profile using these credentials, and we're gonna go ahead and test if it works or not. So,
yeah, it's the most fun time.
Yeah. Okay. So first, we have to go into the identity and access management. It's the portal you want to use. It's the web UI way of accessing your resources. We're gonna first create a role for the next session's EC2 instances. So you can actually access this page through the profile name. If you click that profile name, there is an option called My Security Credentials. You click that, let's ignore that, and there is this roles section. If you go into that section, there's a button called Create Role. We click that, and it asks us what kind of entity or service you want to use this role. There's an option called AWS Services. You can basically you can create that role and assign that role to a EC2 or Lambda services, and those services will be able to behave just like your profile. So it's a great way to do things. We're gonna go ahead and select the EC2 option. There's also the other options. You can attach this role to any other AWS account. It basically gives access for other users in other directories. you just give the account ID of that profile, and that user, that profile will have the access on your resources. There's a web identity option. Cognito is the service for AWS provides. You can create that if you want to. Or SAML 2.0 Federation, that option is available too. So we're going to go ahead and select the AWS service, select the EC2, and we're going to go ahead and click Next. So this is the policies, the permissions we mentioned before. There is this administrator access policy, which gives every action and every resource permission. For demo purposes, we will give that policy to this EC2, this role. Also, there's a role called SSM, Amazon SSM Full Access. SSM is basically the agent within the EC2 instances. Amazon passes the required job to do to this through this service, and the EC2 instances fetches these actions to take. So we're going to give that permission to. So and click Next. The review page comes up. You can name your role whatever you want. I'm gonna go ahead and give that EC2 admin role. I'm gonna name it like that. You can see the role description. You can see the Amazon trusted entities and policies we just gave. So we're gonna go ahead and create the role. The role is created. You can attach this role to any of your EC2 instances and publish your applications within that EC2 instance. You don't have to input any access key or secret key anymore. It will use that role to do its job. So back to the users. We're gonna go ahead and create a user because we want to use the access key and secret key in our applications. We have to create a user first. So add a user. It asks us for a username. I'm gonna give that user, well, AWS sample user. Yeah, and this is the access type stuff. If you want a programmatic access, you click check that, and if you want to log into that this management console via this user, you also want to check the AWS management console access option. When you click that out, when you check that, there's a more options comes up. You can auto-generate a password for this user, or you can provide a custom password for that user. We're gonna go ahead and auto-generate that auto-generate, and there's also required password reset check. It comes checked. It's always good to let users change their password, and that way only them knows that password anymore. So when we auto-generate that password or input a custom password, we also know that password. For security reasons, we don't want that, because if something happens behind the scenes through that user, you are also responsible.
Yeah.
So it's
not
don't want that.
recommended.
Yeah. And we're gonna let the user to change their password in the next login. So and the next permissions, you can attach existing policy directly to that user, or you can add that user to a group. I created a group before called administrators. It actually has the administrator access policy within that, and if I put that user to that group, the user also have the administrator access policy. So I don't have to attach per user.
So as a use cases, if we talk about a real-time example, we can add this group's administrators or developers for different policies, or managers. For example, just we want to give managers list all resources, but other than that, you can't do anything. Administrators do everything, can do everything, and developers only to work with instances only. So we can use this groups in your real world examples.
So we're gonna go and click next here. I checked the administrators and added that user to the administrators group actually. And when you click next, there is a review page. You can see the username you inputted. There is this AWS access type. You check the programmatic access and AWS management console access. The password is auto-generated. We want to user to change their password in the next login. And permissions boundary is not set because we added that user to a group. So also it comes with the one of the management policies. I am user change password because we want the user to change their password in the next login. So this policy is basically automatically given if you want to. If you require password reset for that user. So when you click the create user button, it will create us that user, and as I said before, there is this download CSV file. You can see the details below, and this is the last time you saw them. Because of that, if you want to copy these credentials somewhere else, you do that here. So I want to click the download.csv button, and the credentials is downloaded to my computer, and I'm going to use this credentials when I create the AWS profile within my Visual Studio AWS Explorer. So we are going to the section where we create an application and use that profile to do things. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to create the .NET Core console application, and I want to name it CODERUNNER.work2 because this is the session's name, and I want to add a terminal at the end because when I want to create an entire project type, I have to know that this is the console application. So console app, I named it CodeRunner.work2.terminal, and solutions name is the CodeRunner.work2. So I click OK, and the project is creating.
Which version do you use Visual Studio in this demo?
In this demo, I'm using the .NET Core 2.0. You can also use .NET Core 1.0. AWS supports these runtimes too.
Also, AWS supports, AWS SDK supports Visual Studio 2015.
Yeah, and 13. Actually, I didn't show the AWS Visual Studio setup thing because we
yeah, you can watch our previous
session to get into the details and set up your environment. I recommend to watch that. You can see the AWS Explorer here. If you are not seeing that, you go to View and click the AWS Explorer. If you are not seeing this option, you wouldn't install the AWS tooling for the Visual Studio and watch the previous session again. And after that, there's this AWS Explorer. We're gonna go ahead and create a new account profile. It pops up the creation wizard for me. I'm gonna import the CSV file because I don't want the CSV file for. I'll click the import and that one. The other credentials files is the other for the other account. So yeah, AWS access key and secret key is okay, but the profile name is not comes with that CSV file. So I have to give that profile name. What was it called? AWS sample user. I'm gonna name it just like that. A sample user. Account number. I can skip that. Account type is standard AWS account, and click OK. My profile is created. I hope. Yeah, there's this user. Region is selected as Ohio, US East, and I will be using that profile within this application. So we're gonna look how to do that. You have to have a settings file actually, because when we look at the slides, you are inputting the profile name and region settings within the app config, and there is this app settings section. You put that information to that section, but we don't have any app config or web config here. So because it is a .NET Core application, we can have app configs or app settings, but we have to do it manually. So let's go ahead and create our app settings file. It's going to be a JSON file. Go ahead and add a new item. I'm going to put JSON here, and I'm going to create a JSON file. I'm going to name it settings app settings.json. It will create a blank file for me. So we have to give the AWS settings for some way. I'm going to show how to set up these settings. First, you have to name the setting you give AWS. It will be an object, and in that object there has to be a profile key, and you give the profile name to that object's value.
By the way, maybe we can zoom in the code file.
So, no, zoom in does not work. I will. Yeah. AWS is the object name. In that object, there's a key called profile, and I will give the profile name to that value. And also, we have the region. option, and we will give the region setting in that video. So let's input US East -2, it's Ohio, and for the profile name, AWS sample user is our profile's name. It's the same name within the AWS Explorer we just created, because I want to use that profile. So now we have to fetch that app settings within our application and also set up the AWS SDKs for our application. So we're going to go ahead and right click at the project, and we're going to manage our Nugget packages. On the browse, we're going to first set up the SDK, AWS SDK.core package. It's the core package that other libraries use. I accept it, and yeah, it's loaded. The other one is the, let me type, SDK.Identity Management, because we're going to fetch the profile's name and the create date for that profile, and you can do pretty much anything within the IAM section, maybe creating a user, creating a group, assigning a role to EC2 instances. All the IAM stuff is in that package, AWS SDK.Identity Management. We're gonna install that too. There's also a package called AWS SDK.Extensions.NET Core.Setup. This is the helper for our .NET Core .NET Core applications. It's gonna give me an option for the configuration. How to say? It will give me an extension methods for the configuration class, and we will be able to fetch the AWS credentials within that method. So I'm gonna install this package too. And also, if you want to use configurations, settings within your application, you also have to install the Microsoft.extensions.configuration package, and also if you store your settings in your JSON files, you also have to install the JSON package, .configuration.json package. There is other options too. If you want to reach the environment variables within your application, you also want to install the package configuration.environment variables. If you want to use the pass parameters to your application via the command line, you have to use that command line package, and also there's an XML, INI, that sort of thing, options available to you. So we're gonna create a new configuration builder and build our configuration from the ground up. So I'm gonna create a var config new configuration builder. So yes, in that class there's an option called add JSON file, because we installed the JSON extension. In that you pass the app settings.json, the settings file's name. You also have the option of, is that file optional? We're gonna give the true for that, and it tracks the file. If that changes, the settings will be updated too. So I want to enable that feature too. So, but before that, we have to actually set base path for our configuration builder, because if we didn't do that, the configuration builder can't find the app settings.json file. So the setting for this is demo. Okay, directory dot current get current directory. If you set the base path to that, it will be look into the
our project directory.
Our project directory. So after that, we're gonna want to build this config, and we have a where's that? We have the configuration root, basically the configuration instance in our code. If you dot into the config, you can see the get AWS options extension in the Amazon extension.NET Core setup. This gives us the options for creating clients for the services. So I'm going to name it options, and in that options there's a method called create service client. We're gonna create an Amazon identity management service. We want the client for that service. This gives me an instance of Amazon identity management service client. So I'm gonna get that to my code. So I'm gonna call it client. So why is that shouting at me? Okay, I'm gonna build the project and see what's wrong. Okay, it's not building. Let's see if I'm inputting this. Oh my. Okay. Amazon management service. Yeah, that's correct actually.
Maybe it likes methods.
Oh yeah. I forgot to call method. So yeah. In that client, actually, there's a method called getUserAsync. So this is an async method, and we have to use this method within an async method. So we have to cut this and create a static async method for our usage. I'm going to call it main async, and I'm going to pass the string array arguments, and yeah, use that, and so, and call that async method using the args and value in the void method. So we're gonna also tell that this is an async method. And get user async will fetch me the user information for that profile. I'm going to call it response and await the response. And within the response, there's a user. So let's fetch that. And we can use the console.writeLine to output the username and when it was created. So hello, I'm gonna use the format hello and the user was created on that time. And we can use the username and user created date, yeah. And after that, we have to wait for the user input, because if we didn't put that, the application will open and close really fast. We're gonna do read check, and yeah, let's have a look. If it did everything correctly, we're gonna see the hello AWS sample user, and
this user is created on this time.
Yeah.
Approximately 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and here we go.
Yeah.
Hello AWS sample user. The user was created on 10 minutes ago.
I like the code that run for the first time.
Yeah.
The first time correct. Good job.
Thanks. That wraps up the demo. You can also do pretty much everything, as I said. Add a role to an instance profile, add user to a group, attach a role to your policy, attach a policy to users, create access keys, etc., etc. This library has the all the features within the SDK. It can do pretty much everything within the AWS management portal. So let me change the scene, and thanks for joining us. Today we will be on live on the other
next Friday.
And see you guys.
It will be the 12th session in the series. So this was the second one. We talked about the fundamentals of identity management and programming to Authenticate on AWS for the Microsoft developers. So see you next time.
Yep. Bye.